Hello and welcome. My name is Jonathan Batselos, and this presentation today was put together by my team, and it will go through the lessons that were learned from the ransomware attack that happened during the summit. This is the agenda for the presentation. First thing we'll go into is the objective of it, and then we'll get into the attacks that were received by the organizations at the summit. It'll then go into the security considerations such as vulnerabilities, threats, and attacks. And then finally, we will recommend steps to improve the cybersecurity of the organizations. The purpose of this briefing is to define possible plans of action that should be implemented to prevent and deter attacks on United States critical IT systems in response to the events that occurred during the Five Eyes Global Economic Summit. This briefing is especially directed to the President of the United States and the Chief Information Security Officer of the American delegation to the summit. During the Five Eyes Global Economic Summit, every delegation was exposed to different types of cyber attacks. Brute force password attacks were executed against multiple servers to gain legal access. Countless combinations of usernames and passwords were generated during these attacks. With denial of service or DOS attacks, servers were targeted with an abundant amount of useless information with the intention of draining the critical resources of the servers and to slow down activity. Another attack that happened were SQL injection attacks. They're executed by cyber criminals that were trying to exploit the web security vulnerabilities to access protected data by infiltrating the query set sent into the databases. And finally, a ransomware attack was executed, which meant summit attendees were locked from their computers with a warning from a fake law enforcement agency, happened to be the FBI, and they demanded a ransom price to unlock the systems. Next, we have security considerations. When discussing network security, three common terms are used: vulnerability, threat, and attack. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses present in the network and the device associated with that network. Threat is anything that may compromise the proper operation, integrity, or availability of that network. And attacks, to bring them all together, attacks are executed by those threats to compromise endpoints like servers, computers, and or systems like databases or applications. Vulnerabilities in network security can be summed up as the soft spots that are present in every network. Typically, there are three primary types of vulnerabilities or weaknesses. These are technical weaknesses, configuration weaknesses, and security policy weaknesses. Technical weaknesses are the intrinsic security weaknesses of technology, like TCP/IP protocol weaknesses, operating system weaknesses, and network equipment weaknesses. Network administrators or engineers need to learn what the configuration weaknesses are and correctly configure their computing and network devices to compensate. Security policy weaknesses can create unforeseen security threats. The network configuration can pose security risk to the network if users do not follow the security policy. Now we move on to threats, and there are four primary classes of threats to the network: unstructured, structured, external, and internal. Unstructured threats consist of mostly inexperienced individuals using easily available hacking tools such as shell scripts and password crackers. Structured threats come from hackers who are highly motivated and technically advanced, so they know the system vulnerabilities and can understand and develop exploit code and scripts. External threats are generated by entities outside of the organization with no authorized access to the systems, and internal threats occur when someone has authorized access to the network with either an account or a server or physical access to the network. Now we move on to attacks, and like threats, attacks may be divided into four primary classes: reconnaissance, access, denial of service, and malware such as worms, viruses, or Trojan horses. Reconnaissance is the unauthorized discovery and mapping of system services or vulnerabilities. It is also known as information gathering, and in most cases, it precedes an actual access or denial of service attack. System access is the ability for unauthorized intruders to gain access to a device for which the intruder does not have an account or password for. Entering or accessing systems to which one does not have authority to access usually involves running a hack, script, or tool that exploits a known vulnerability of the system or application being attacked. And finally, we have malware, which is malicious software that is executed to affect a system or deny services to access it. It can also allow sensitive information to be copied or transferred to other systems. And finally, we come to our recommendations. After the cyber attacks received by the Five Eyes Alliance nations during the Global Economic Summit, our cyber security specialists have created a set of steps that will be implemented into daily operations to better protect the systems. First one we have here is set up a risk management regime. This is to assess the risks to the organization's information and systems coming from different threats. Next, we have increased network security, which means to increase the protection of the network from attacks. Specifically, this means to defend the network perimeter by filtering out unauthorized access and malicious content, and also monitor and test security controls of the network. After that, we have user education and awareness. How we will achieve this is to produce user security policies covering acceptable and secure use of the systems. This includes staff training to make sure every employee maintains their awareness of cyber risks. After that, we have malware protection. To achieve this, we will produce relevant policies and establish anti-malware defenses across the whole network. And lastly, we have removable media controls, which we will produce a policy to control all access to removable media. How we do this is limit media types in use and scan all media for malware before connecting them to the systems. And here we have a couple more recommendations. First one is security configuration. This means to apply security patches and ensure the secure configuration of all systems is maintained. One way to do this is create a system inventory and define a baseline build for all devices. Next, we have manage user privileges. To do this, we will establish effective management processes and limit the number of privileged accounts. We also limit user privileges and monitor user activity, and also control access to activity and audit logs. After that, we have incident management. So we need to establish a incident response and disaster recovery capability. How to do this is test incident management plans, report criminal incidents effectively to law enforcement. We also will increase monitoring. To do this, we will establish a monitoring strategy to produce supporting policies. We also continuously monitor all systems and networks and analyze logs periodically for unusual activity that could indicate an attack. And finally, we have home and remote working. We should develop a remote working policy and train staff to adhere to it. We also, in order to do that, we need to apply the secure baseline build to all devices and protect both data and transit at rest when employees choose to do this. And this has been our lessons learned presentation. As you can see, our references are on the screen. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any member of the team, and thank you for your time.